Has anyone ever heard of this guy, a little known YouTuber by the name of James Somerton? Yeah, I'm not joking. Here he is, not content with copying everything. He's also taken H-Bomb's titling, style. A measured response. Incredible. For those of you who don't know, James Somerton was live streaming, and while trying to open an image in a new tab, he accidentally hit Save As on a JPEG, and it opened a folder where one of the files was entitled List of Queer Authors I've Plagiarized From. And it all went like downhill from there. It's been quite detrimental to his career. Is that real? Yes. In all seriousness, like the H-bomb video on this is like the most viewed video on YouTube, so I'm not really gonna relitigate everything. However, I will say that the reason why, because I've always been like a really big everyone can improve kind of guy. You know, there are plenty of people who are today Hitler's strongest soldier who might tomorrow be a better man. You know, I don't like to discount that. I usually like to believe in people changing for the better. The problem with James Somerton is that there are two things that matter when it comes to getting better as a person, okay? There's who you are, which is indeterminable, unknowable to anyone but yourself, invisible, okay? It's entirely up here. That's who you are. And then there's who people perceive you to be. There's always going to be a gap between who people perceive you to be and who you are, and everyone knows that, right? We all know that's how it works. But you can work through changing who you are in a way that makes it apparent to others that you are changing yourself, right? Like that process can happen. The problem is if you're a gigantic disingenuous liar, it makes it impossible for anyone to trust that you're actually changing who you are and not just like disingenuously shifting the public perception of you. The big thing James Somerton did that just like null and void anything and everything he ever did was that time that somebody found him out for plagiarism and they posted about it, asking him about it, and he responded to that by saying that person had sent death threats after him. And eventually the harassment led the person who noticed the plagiarism to delete their account or whatever. That to me is like, that is a level of like malicious dishonesty that makes it impossible to ever trust anything. Like plagiarism, I think, while bad, is something a person can improve from. If Illuminati, the other one that H-bomb went after, you know, if there is like a path for her to be a better person. I'm not saying that it's easy or whatever. I'm just saying like it's conceivable. But James Somerton, like, she's bad for other reasons. Okay, sorry. I might be not familiar on everything. I'm just talking about the plagiarism. She did so much worse than the plagiarism. Okay, never mind. Forget Illuminati. Never mind. Okay. If a person just did a lot of plagiarism and then like got caught for it and owned up to it, it is possible for them to like build on that and improve as a person, okay? But if you are dishonest enough that you will just, you know, people find you out, you accuse them of sending death threats to you or like attacking you for being gay or whatever, if you weaponize your identity as a gay guy to accuse everyone who disagrees with you of being homophobic or whatever, like you can't come back from that, man. You can't come back from that, right? Like how do you ever demonstrate to people that you have improved as a person? How? This content warning feels manipulative. It is. You would otherwise put it at the 28-minute mark. He did this in his last video, which he deleted. I only saw the first minute of it, and it was immediately him doing the YouTuber apology, like I'm so sad, like I self-harm, I just came back from the hospital thing. Like he's 100% weaponizing it. I expect nothing but dishonesty from him. Anyway, he might delete this video, so let's
just a disclosure, this video...
Too close to the camera, James. Get away from me.
...is monetized, but revenue from it will be sent along to H-Bomber Guy's team to be dispersed to the people whose work I plagiarized.
This is also something you would typically have at the end of the video. I guess.
His team won't accept it. I'll be making monthly donations to Wikipedia and Trans Lifeline going forward. You may have also noticed that a few of my past videos have gone up on the channel again, and revenue from those as well will also be sent along with the revenue from this video. Over the last couple of months, I've been getting in touch with the people who I plagiarized, to apologize one-on-one instead of a mass apology. It's a bit difficult because many of them don't have public email addresses, so I'm still working on it, but it is a top priority of mine. I've heard back from a few of them, and they were actually incredibly nice, accepting my apology and just imploring me to do better in the future. So I want to thank them publicly for that. There's plenty that I haven't heard back from.
So typically with a apology video, you want to start by explaining what you did wrong, or like kind of leading in with that. If you open with the "this is how I'm doing better" part, it comes across as a little bit disingenuous, because you're sort of like preempting the audience to like, you want to build the case of improvement rather than just stating the improvement and then like after that making the case. I'm gonna like pick this apart. I think very little of this guy. You could argue like I'm not being charitable. I'm kind of not. I don't know. I don't trust him for shit. I'm sorry.
And I completely understand that. In many cases, I wouldn't want to talk to me either. I also want to apologize to my audience, though.
Whiny, self-defacing bullshit, you know, like,
You trusted me to be a good representative of the queer community, and I was not that. I tried to be. I tried to be a voice for every member of the queer community, but that was a failed endeavor.
Narcissism. All of this reads like narcissism right off the bat.
Before it even started. I'm a cis white gay man. No matter how much I try to be a good spokesperson, I can never really truly understand the life experiences of other far more put upon members of the queer community. God. This is one of the reasons that I would use their own words.
Unironic messiah complex. Yeah, whipping back and forth between like the desire to be the savior of the community and this like self-debasement, this performative. No, the accusations against him are not, hey, you're a cis white gay man, not a trans woman with Parkinson's. It's the
but I should have made it very clear that that's what I was doing. I never ever thought that I was the only voice out there, as some have said, but being a cis white man, I thought I might be able to win over some people who wouldn't otherwise listen, unless it was
hey, that's my excuse,
someone who looks and sounds just like them. And so I tried speaking for everyone, and this was a horrible mistake. What I thought was being inclusive ended up leading to a lot of people feeling left out and even offended. This fell upon Nick as well, as a non-binary person on the...
I don't know if he's responding to a set of accusations outside the H-bomb video, but this was like not the problem. This isn't what was being talked about. This explanation makes no sense. Yeah, because this is performative self-debasement. Whether it's like genuine or not, it remains performative. It's not like, it's not a substantive address of the problems, because you ever have that friend who anytime they fuck up, even if they fuck up in quite a like malicious or thoughtless way, and you point it out to them, they do this like really weird self-hatey, like, I'm not good enough for you, I'm so sorry that I did this to you bullshit. Everyone's had someone like that at some point, right? Sometimes people do it knowingly, sometimes they don't. It's always manipulative. It's a manipulative tactic. It's an abuse tactic. It's a way of making yourself too pathetic to hate, basically. And narcissists often do it because they whiplash between like presentation of being, you know, like above it all or better than everyone else, and these like pits of despair and self-debasement. Very manipulative.
A spectrum. They wanted to include asexuality and non-binary representation in our videos, but because Nick's experience is not universal, there is no universal experience.
Vosh seems to know something about the narcissism. Yeah, I see it in other people. It's easy for me to see it because I'm the opposite of this. Performative self-debasement is this is the opposite personality type to me. So yeah, it's pretty easy for me to recognize this. I don't demonstrate any of these traits. Whatever character flaws I have, these aren't the ones that I have. These are a very different set of character flaws to the ones that I have.
People felt that we were delegitimizing their own experiences because we focused on Nick's, and I apologize for that. And I'm sure that Nick does as well. I'd also like to extend a personal apology to Jesse Earl, better known as Jesse Gender. Out of everyone that I spoke to who was also a YouTuber, Jesse was by far the kindest person. I think Jesse might be one of the kindest people I've ever met or ever encountered. We never actually met in person because of my hot-headed.
Didn't Jesse Gender recently do something bad, or am I thinking of someone else? I don't know. Oh no, I was thinking of Sophie from Mars. My bad.
I drew her into just this anger spiral of mine that was unwarranted and absolutely ruined a possible friendship. Jessie was actually doing her best to kind of mitigate my frustration and everything. And at that moment,
She threw a cat. Oh yeah, like you stub your toe and out of frustration, you pick up your cat and do like a fastball pitch to the nearest wall. Yeah, I remember.
and I just wasn't allowing her to do that. And I really, truly, honestly want to apologize to her for that. Again, if you ever get the chance to speak with Jessie one-on-one, or if you have gotten the chance, you'll know just how nice she is and how kind. And I was a real asshole.
She blamed on being socialized male. That's like a turf argument in reverse, isn't it? Weird thing to say. Very unforced error, both in saying it and in doing it. Anyway, yeah. So we can all see the manipulation tactics that are being employed right off the bat in this video, right? Like you understand the point that I'm making. I'm not saying. Look, making an apology video is okay. How do I put this? Not just making an apology video, making any kind of apology, if you think about it for long enough, is always going to feel a little bit manipulative, because socially we think of apologies as this very like earnest, unplanned, sincere thing. But like all other forms of communication, an apology or anything else, a proposal, an ask out to the prom, or anything, can be thoroughly planned and kind of vetted and workshopped. There are good and bad ways to do this. There's nothing wrong with carefully thinking about and editing and like tweaking an apology. That's fine. That's normal. That's okay. The issue is the way you end up constructing it can say a lot about you, because it shows the world your priorities. And James Somerton's priorities here seem to be opening with a self-harm disclaimer, performative gesturing to the whole, like, I'm just a cis white male, how could I possibly know, etc., like proceeds go to X or Y or whatever. Normally with stuff like this, you really do want to open with like, the main thing that I look for in an apology, the main thing that matters to me is the thought process of why they made the mistake to begin with, right? That's what's the entirety of my context video, is that, basically, because I think that's what matters most. If you made a mistake, why? Was it like a genuine like brain like you just did a bad thing, you don't know, like you don't defend it? Was it like there was a different thought process, or like the logic you had in your mind was different back then? Was it like you had a different value system, or you were just acting selfishly, or you were afraid of some other outcome that you were trying to mitigate? Why did you do what you did? That's the most important thing to me. So I think that's what should like lead the conversation, Stuff like this I think should come at the end, if it comes at all.
For dragging her into my reactionary, unwarranted frustration. We haven't spoke since all of that happened.
You might notice he's also not actually saying what he's done. Like, he's barely even said that he did plagiarism, right? Like, what is he referring to here? Reactionary what? What are you talking about? Like, I saw the H-bomb video. I know what he's gesturing at. But, like, what is he talking about?
But Jesse, if you are watching this video, I do want you to know that I am honestly sorry for that. I hope...
Is he Canadian?
Truly, honestly, I hope everything goes as well as possible for you, because you deserve all of it.
Clocked.
There was a misunderstanding between Jesse and I after that happened that I do want to clear up, where someone who at least claimed to be a fan of Jesse's, did an internet and threatened to kill me, which is, being a person on the internet, death threats are unfortunately... claimed to be a fan of Jesse's, did an internet and threatened to kill me, which is...
Did an internet and threatened to kill me. Again, I have no doubt that James Somerton received death threats following all of this, but like, I don't want to come across as like uncaring or whatever to the general thing. It's just like, holy shit, why are we leading with all of this? Like, it's not exactly uncommon. It's just like, why would you lead with that? Especially when one of the things you're being accused of is lying about receiving death threats as a way of silencing people who found out you were plagiarizing.
Being a person on the internet, death threats are unfortunately not uncommon. At the time, though, I was in a very panicked state, and so I did report it to the police. I did not report Jesse to the police, which is the misunderstanding that people came away with. I did not report Jesse to the police. I would have no reason to do that. And it did end up that this person had a prior record with the police of violent acts, and they actually lived quite near me. So the police took it very seriously. They took it so seriously that they implored me not to speak to Jesse, which I took their advice on, which I should.
This is great stuff to open an apology video with. This is definitely what, like, everyone wanted to hear about, you know, like opening 6 minutes. We haven't talked about anything even related to the shit. Like, it's incredibly weird. It's narcissist behavior. It's sympathy baiting, and it's like it is this fundamental inability to understand what other people want from him. That's the same reason he came out with that initial video, which opened with that weeping, "I just came back from the hospital," which he immediately had to delete because nobody liked it and everyone made fun of it. Like, he doesn't understand what other people want. I think, like, fundamentally, I do think he's a narcissist. I don't think that he can, I don't think that he can, like, project his, thought process onto other people and think of, like, what they think or want. Yeah, some people just can't really do that. I don't know.
Shouldn't have, honestly. I should have at least clarified to Jessie what was going on and not just left her hanging. And so I want to, again, apologize to Jessie for that. But in that state, I listened to the police, which is, you know, maybe not the best decision all the time because the cops don't usually have the best interests of people at heart. So, Jessie, I want to apologize for that and everything else that happened. Completely understand why you would not want to speak to me ever again, but I just want you to know that I am sorry. And now back on the original topic. The work Nick and I were doing on the channel, we wanted it to be, you know, for everyone. We wanted it to be a channel where every queer person could feel welcomed, and we failed at that.
Wait, is it for everyone or every queer person? That's just, sorry, it's not really relevant. It's just kind of, okay.
Something that in hindsight I think is impossible to create, and that's why it's important for there to be many different queer voices in spaces like YouTube, and there are. What's more important is that those voices are discoverable, which is something that I should have been helping with. I often shared other queer creators on Twitter, but this was when I only had, 800, 1,000 Twitter followers.
Oh, I used to do this really good thing, but, my naturally good instinct for this behavior faded away over time. But just let it be known that back when I had 800 followers, I did something, I went, for years afterwards, I plagiarized and lied maliciously, accused people of sending death threats for finding out about my plagiarism. But, like, hey, back when I had 800 followers, just so you know, I did tweet about other creators a couple times.
And these creators usually had a whole lot more than that. It was a weird thing because usually they would have infinitely more Twitter followers, but a whole lot less YouTube subscribers. I'm not sure what created that dichotomy, but something was definitely off with the algorithm there. There is a part of
What?
my brain that says YouTube kind of went, oh, white male queer, let's push him and, ignore everyone else in the community, whereas people were able to actually discover other queer creators on Twitter and then make their way to YouTube. But the YouTube algorithm that's the most negative interpretation I have of it, which unfortunately may be true in any case.
Is he like blaming the algorithm for his messiah complex? Like, oh, you don't understand. I had no choice but to, like, claw my way to the top by any means necessary because the YouTube algorithm chose me as a white cis man to be the forefront of queer voices. By the way, I found out about James Somerton from the H-bomb video. I think maybe I saw part of a video of his once, but it wasn't something I, like, registered in my mind. so it's...
I should have done more to share the voices of other queer people. Certainly the people whose works I used, both credited and plagiarized in my videos, but also just other creators on YouTube. It's important for us as a community, as vaguely defined as we are, to support each other.
He's a forgettable guy.
And I didn't do that nearly enough. From day one, I was very taken in by the idea of being a YouTuber. As soon as my videos started to get recommended by the algorithm, after not releasing a new video for like 2 years, I felt like I had a short period of time to get the next videos out as soon as possible, which is why so little work was put into the writing of them. And so much.
Yeah, that's definitely the accusation being leveled at you here, that you didn't put enough work into them. That's, that's a clean little euphemism. So you notice what he's doing is creating this narrative about how he had to do it, right? Like he was consistently maliciously dishonest for years. This is not like a 1 or 2 time fuck up here, okay? And he lied very aggressively about it, very like consistently, very maliciously, very like he it's bad. So he's like, you know, the YouTube algorithm promoted me. I really wanted to be a YouTuber. I felt like I had to be a strong voice because the YouTube algorithm favored me. And like, he's justifying it. All of those apologies were loaded at the front because if he loaded them at the back, it would have been weird for him to follow up 30 minutes of justifications with an apology. That's why. He can't apologize at the end of the video because this whole damn video is going to be him explaining how, you know, the God favored him to be the chosen queer YouTuber and he had no choice but to do this. I mean, he might qualify that language with a bunch of like self-debasement and apologies that are like, you know, I'm sorry, I didn't understand, I could have done better, but he's not going to let us in on his real thought process because his real thought process was, as H Bomber Guy said, he doesn't respect other people and he doesn't care about them. He only cares about himself. That's it. That's his thought process. It's evident in this video because in this video, he's demonstrating an inability to understand what other people want from this apology. This video will probably get deleted because it's going to be received almost completely negatively. He probably thinks it's going to be received better than the last one because he doesn't understand what people want.
Which was taken from other places, plagiarized. Early on, I thought crediting authors in the opening credits alone was enough, especially since the videos weren't monetized early on. But I understand now, especially after speaking with some of the people who I did plagiarize, that was just, I was wrong.
He's literally doing it. He just said, "Oh, I thought showing the name of an author right at the beginning meant that it was okay for me to include like 800 words that I read verbatim from the article while hiding the fact that it was from the article and read it out loud as though it was my work, you know? This is just a lie. None of his plagiarism was accidental. Like, there's a difference between heavily using other people's work and putting in effort to hide the fact that their work was used, which is what he did.
Was not the way to go about it. They should have been cited properly within the text of the video. They should have been called out in the video at least once verbally, as well as, you know, having citations on screen.
He's lying here. He's downplaying. He's trying to salvage a portion of his audience. He recognizes that he can't actually respond to anything that H-Bomber said, H-Bomber Guy, because he knows, like, it's too much. It's too overwhelming. So instead he has to pretend that his problem was, like, you know, he did some wuckies with the citations, you know? He's doing the exact same thing that H-Bomb called him out for.
If there were a whole lot of them, like with, you know, one of the examples that H-Bomber Guy used in his video was the Deep Cuts video, there were a whole lot of people who I, you know, credited in the opening credits, but really it's plagiarism. They should have been cited on screen with actual citations.
No, proper citation isn't the issue here. Fully, like, most of that video was just you finding articles and reading their contents out loud while hiding. The citations wouldn't have... He's pretending that it was just a citation error. H-Bomb called all of this.
Links where you can find this stuff. Maybe there should have even been a bibliography that you could have gone to, like on a Google Drive or something like that.
No, you should have just written the damn script.
Because, you know, although I might have stated that the scripts were based upon the work of these authors, it, in many cases, wasn't just based on their work. It was their work, word for word. In some cases, I did get permission. Like with the Evil Queens Disney video. I'll put the email up on the screen that I got from Sean Griffin, where he did give me permission to publish the video. I sent
No! This email is after the video was put out. You didn't get permission. You got a post hoc, like, oh, sure, go ahead. Look, it's a very thoughtful video, and I hope your audience gets a lot out of it. Also, I'm grateful for the shout out on your title card. It was the one thing I was going to request that you give me a bit of citation. He didn't get permission. This drama reached this guy after he released the video and just plagiarized a bunch of his work. And this guy was very nice and gracious over email. That's not the same as getting permission. He said he sent them the video before. No, isn't that a lie? Didn't H-Bomb literally say that was a lie?
The finished video to him, and he watched it and he gave me permission. But in most cases, I didn't get permission and thought that just putting the author's name...
Yeah, it was a lie. Yeah, why the f would this guy who makes a career out of plagiarism send a finished video over to somebody to have a person he plagiarized from watch it in its entirety and give permission?
In the opening credits was enough. I was much more interested in the production of the videos than the writing of them at this point.
Right, so you were more interested in pretending to be a filmmaker. You know, there was an excellent thread from Folding Ideas on James Somerton, where he very angrily talked about how James Somerton, while begging people to donate more to his money, or sorry, donate more to his money, donate more to his channel, bought some like ungodly expensive camera equipment. Okay, so back in April, I snapped at James in reply to a tweet that was linking to this video. I wanted to talk about the full context. The bit of context that I initially got keyed into, James to fact check his videos about indie filmmaking in Canada. Wild claims weren't even worth debunking because they bordered not even wrong. But watching one of these pitch videos, I noticed he had a $4,000 current gen camera in the background as a prop, and that seemed both pretentious and weird. You don't use your best camera as a prop, you use your second best camera as a prop. So being an obsessive weirdo, I needed to know, and I watched his BTS stuff until I spotted his main rig, a $6,000 camera with about $1,000 in accessories. Now, these in isolation are unremarkable because his Patreon at the time was bringing in around $8,000 a month. His channel was a full-on business, so investing in some professional equipment of that level was maybe a bit indulgent but justifiable. What was weird is that he doesn't shoot multicam, doesn't shoot outdoors, doesn't shoot on location, and in a studio, the two cameras kind of really step on each other's toes. Basically, if you already have one and don't need a B cam, there's no reason to get another. Again, on its own, this says nothing. It's just indicative of poor financial decisions, maybe impulsive purchasing gear acquisition syndrome. Biblical sins, but not crimes. Da-da-da. At the end of February, he tweets, I want to start shooting anamorphic, and 3 weeks later in March, he posts the worst out-of-focus, underexposed, I just got a new lens video I've ever seen, showing off his trash-covered bedroom. Oh my god. The dig. Based on what's available for his camera at the lead time, it's enough to get a now anamorphic with the flaring blah 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 $1,300 lens. Again, these are not a crime, budget options. Roast it over this. Then he starts begging for more Patreon money because he just said, we got the lowest Patreon payout we've ever gotten in over a year. Where's the conclusion to this? This thread is longer than I thought. 3 weeks later, he bought a brand new Sony FX6V for 8,000 Canadian to add to his pile of cinema cameras, despite the fact that he was, but scant moments earlier, in such a precarious position that a single bad month would kill his channel. So in addition to him lying about his income and money to like guilt trip people into giving him more, while dropping tens of thousands of dollars on camera equipment he doesn't know how to use, you know, so on and so forth, like, it's just very funny to me that James Somerton would basically just admit it and say, yeah, I didn't really care about writing the videos. I just wanted to have expensive cameras to feel like a filmmaker, which is why he had the ass bob, which is why he has the stupid black turtleneck, which is why, okay, I didn't want to get like petty with this, but since he's admitting he didn't actually care about anything other than feeling like a director, which H-Bomb covers in the video as well, how he would like say he's working on a film but then drop the project and even the film ideas he had seemed plagiarized. This shot looks awful. Why is it so desaturated, and what is wrong with the contrast? Why does he look so ghostly pale? How do you have a field of view this narrow so that only his face is in focus, that close to the camera, but still have his blurry forehead blend into the blurry white background? Remarkable.
So after 3 or 4 videos, I brought Nick on as a main writer for the channel. The idea is that they would write the vast majority of the scripts. I would film, voice, and edit the videos, and we'd split the money that came in. We were roommates at the time, and Nick didn't have a job, so I figured it would help both of us. This is actually when we had some of our biggest videos, like the ones talking about Wiccan and Hulkling, where we lucked out because it came out right in time for WandaVision to hit. And then the Killing Stalking video, which became our biggest video by far. The Sadism of Class was another one. These videos weren't plagiarized, and we loved making them. It didn't.
Oh, they haven't been found to be plagiarized. There's really no reason to trust this guy for shit.
Take long for the channel income to start growing. Lucky timing, really, because this was around the same time that I was laid off since the company that
It's easy for me to say now because I've always found his videos to sound high quality, but also sound and look low quality and boring at the same time. Couldn't put my finger on why, but after H-Bomb, I finally understood why. Yeah, okay. This is going to sound like I'm really dragging this in from nowhere, but in a way, the problems with James Somerton are the same problems that I have with generative AI. You can have something thoughtlessly and soullessly imitate high quality, but without like human creativity guiding it, there are like weird flaws and emptiness that you can detect, you know? Does everyone understand the comparison that I'm making there? James Somerton was obsessed with like replicating the aesthetic of an intellectual highbrow documentarian, but his videos were boring because you can replicate the aesthetic as much as you want, but it doesn't change the fact that you don't know how to make it interesting. Meanwhile, H-Bomber guy videos are, not to you know, glaze him too hard or whatever, incredibly fun to watch. Like, nobody watches an H-Bomber guy video like, everyone watches more than one video from his channel, at least. He's incredibly fun to watch. And he doesn't have, like, a professional documentarian aesthetic. He looks like a scrungly, weird, messy dude. It's just he deliberately like plays down everything pretentious about the form that he's making, you know. And you know, and it comes across like 10 times as good, right? Because it turns out if you know what you're doing and you're creative and you're smart, you can make like really amazing stuff in a wide variety of aesthetics. This, much like generative AI, is an obsession with the aesthetic outcome, but not with the creative process that produces it. And that's why it's soulless and empty and bad. Okay.
I was working for downsized once COVID hit its second year. Nick and I had both grown up poor, so we started doing what we could to try and stabilize our income as much as possible. This meant putting out more videos, which meant I had to take over more of the writing duties. But since filming, editing, usually doing multiple edits because of YouTube copyright issues, as well as managing the channel and dealing with my mom's recent cancer diagnosis.
Just pile it on. Every excuse, every sympathy bait, all of it. Yep. Making YouTube videos is so hard. Constructing this is so difficult. Writing scripts is so hard. My mom had cancer. Did you know my mom had cancer? Yeah, trauma. Give me money. Downplaying everything.
All of that was already taking up so much of my time and attention. This led to a lot of copy and pasting blocks of text into scripts. My intention at the time was to use these as a jumping off point once Nick and I sat down to edit the script, because that's what we would do. I would sort of put in my parts, Nick would put in his parts, and then we would sit down at a table, read through the whole script, and kind of try and make it seem cohesive. But, and here's something I'm sure a lot of people will call a bullshit excuse, I have memory issues.
Oh my God. Well, you know, you got to give him credit for one thing. He called it on how people would respond to that one. Yeah? You're writing a script for a video, you just copy and paste like 800 words, multiple paragraphs of text from an article that you sought out, copy paste. That's a very normal thing that people do while script writing, by the way. You know, to build off of is that they copy paste massive sections of text from articles and put it in their scripts. That's a normal thing that's a part of the writing process for script writers. You can talk to anybody who writes scripts and they're like, yeah, I love to, you know, open up my script creation process by just dumping blocks of text from other people, you know, to workshop them out or fix them over. And then I just forget I left them in there. You know, I never like reread the script and go like, oh, wow, that whole section wasn't written by me. When you factor in the fact that James Somerton would often edit portions of plagiarized script to either change the syntax, hide the fact that it was the personal experience of another author he's stealing from, change LGBT to queer or whatever else, this becomes even more laughable. This wasn't a memory issue. Like, this is all a lie. Like, incredible. I actually didn't expect it to be this bad. I thought it would be more manipulative. Like, you know, oh, I fucked up so badly. These are all my fault, blah, blah, blah. But no, he's just full on defending it. Like, just flatly, like, every excuse in the book.
Because of a head injury from when I was...
Remarkable. Is that why the fuck-ass bob? He doesn't actually have a fuck-ass bob. The top of his head is actually just shaped like that, and he has a buzz cut. That's the dark secret.
As a child. They're actually getting worse. I've talked about it on streams and in videos, so yes, it is real. But some people will call it a bullshit excuse anyway. The head injury...
some people will say this obvious lie is an obvious lie, but you know, what can I do about the... literally the drop to my head as a kid. Yeah, he's literally Goku.
Injury is actually what led to me having epilepsy, which is why I can't work in any job that involves physical labor. Employers can't get insurance for me to like lift things or operate vehicles and stuff like that. I actually did marketing for a restaurant group for...
People with epilepsy can work jobs? What? You what? Pardon my ignorance on the subject. I'm under the impression that epilepsy is like a manageable condition. Does he have double epilepsy? What? I don't understand.
little while, but got let go when they found out that I was epileptic because, at least according to them, I couldn't be insured to be in the kitchens where I need.
By default, I'm just going to assume anything that he says is a lie. I'm going to assume that like he got fired for stealing ketchup packets, and not like an employer said, "Oh, you have a disability, you're fired." I don't know Canadian employment law. I'm going to assume he was stealing ketchup packets. Let's move on.
Needed to be to film videos and take photos and stuff like that. But anyway, when it came to editing the scripts, I couldn't remember what I'd written and what had been copy pasted. We should have just
phenomenal, genuinely. Anybody who had this level of disability where you're reading over a script and you can't remember what you did or didn't write, you should be in a home. If you actually had that level of disability, that this was a consistent issue like day to day, this is like actual like ward of the state shit. Perhaps you could use the Google Documents highlight tool to highlight the stuff that you copy and pasted in. You know, you can like select the text and then add like a light blue background as a reminder if you knew this was an issue consistently. This is, remember what I said about narcissism? Lies like this could only be produced by somebody who didn't understand how other people's minds work. I mean that. This is like a clinical thing. I am full on like armchair like clinicianing this. I like unironically, it's not even for a bit. This demonstrates to me, this is so unbelievable that it comes across like a joke. It's just a fundamental inability to understand what people want to hear. It's remarkable. I have no idea. It's incredible. He might believe it too. That's the crazy thing. He might believe what he's saying. The human mind is an incredible thing.
Chucked out everything that I had put into the script and filled them in with wholly original thoughts. Or I should have been taking notes on where things came from so that we could at least cite them in the videos, if nothing else. But I never did that. According to my therapist.
Again, like if that was true, he should be in a home. I'm not kidding. That level of this would be like, this is like walking into somebody else's apartment because they left the door unlocked and sitting down on their couch in a living room that doesn't look like yours and thinking that you're home. Like this is a level of mental impairment that prevents you from functioning. I'm not even joking.
My not thinking to do that probably stems from my recently diagnosed ADHD, but I don't know if I'm willing to say that, really.
Incredible. Incredible. Tell me more. Tell me more. Have you stubbed your toe recently? Do you have bone spurs? Tell me about your tendinitis. I want to know more about you. Please. Do you have autism? Tell me about your autism. Tell me about your depression and anxiety. Wait, I'm sorry. Those will both come up when he does the, at 26 minutes in, when he talks about the self-harm trigger warning section.
Maybe it was, or maybe it was just plain laziness. Maybe I thought
he spilled his juice.
Cut a corner because I was torn in so many other directions. Honestly, I can't remember, like I said. Memory issues. But yes, we should have just thrown out my contributions to the scripts and filled them in with original writing, but we felt like we had too much of a time.
Bro, you've got shit on your lip. What the You got chapped lips or something. You've got that lip white ring thing that you get after a really gross wake up when you have a hangover or whatever the
time crunch. We felt like we had to get videos out more often to feed the algorithm. And then my mom died. And I became completely useless. I couldn't think straight at all. So Nick had to completely take over writing duties while I dealt with things you deal with after a person dies. My dad, you see, he can't read or write. He was very poor when he was a kid. So he had to leave school really young to work.
Are you sure he doesn't just have a more advanced form of the mental debilitation that you're claiming to have in this video, where you literally can't remember whether or not you've written like entire multiple paragraph chunks of text that you deliberately lifted from other articles, but also selectively edited to change the syntax to make it sound like you hadn't lifted them, and then constructed the video in such a way to make it clear to other people that you wrote those sections even though you didn't, and then you may or may not have included them in the video at the beginning? Did he have like a more advanced version of that disease? I don't know the name of that disease.
In order to feed his many brothers and sisters. So I had to deal with all the legal stuff after my mom died, as well as making sure that all my dad's bills were paid and whatnot, especially after his income was basically cut in half. There was supposed to be a buffer here, money-wise, as my mom had a life insurance policy that was going to be split between my dad and myself. But the insurance company, RBC Insurance, so if you have insurance with them, maybe rethink that, refused to pay out the policy because my mother never mentioned that she had family with diabetes. She didn't have diabetes, but because she didn't think to mention that she had family with diabetes, it apparently voided the policy.
Again, I'm just assuming that, is this relevant? No, it's just sympathy baiting. It has nothing to do with anything related to the plagiarism. That being said, I assume he's lying. I just assume he's lying. His mom was also stealing ketchup packets, and that's why the insurance didn't pay out. Genuinely, like, why would we take anything he says at face value? He is the least credible human alive. Like, seriously. I don't believe him paying his debt bills. I don't believe anything he says. What? Like, that's the problem with being this much of a liar. He's lying here in the apology video. He's lying so transparently that it's actually unbelievable. It comes across as a joke. Like, it doesn't even sound like credible lying. It's an insult. He thinks he's better than you, so he won't even dignify you with a believable lie. You know, it's the greatest insult that a supposedly apologetic person can offer, which is that they don't even care whether you believe it. But that's the thing with him. He does care because this is his income stream. This is his source of revenue. So it's not even just disdain. It's that he doesn't understand. He doesn't care enough to understand what other people want to hear. He doesn't care enough to understand what lies they would believe.
They did was refund a year's worth of premiums that she'd paid, even though she'd been paying them for about 15 years.
Do you think he even talked to H-Bomb and the rest? I don't think H-Bomb would talk to James Somerton. And if I did, I think H-Bomb would be very mean, and very deservedly so. H-Bomb is a smart guy. After James Somerton posted his first weeping apology that he quickly deleted, H-Bomb tore into it pretty much immediately. H-Bomb is not falling for that, like, oh, so sorry bullshit. There's no way he would fall for this. There's no point. James Somerton probably knows this, and probably actually hasn't reached out to H-Bomb. That would be my guess, that he hasn't even tried because he knows that it's like an impossible task. But he did talk directly about reaching out to, or like wanting to reach out to, Jesse Gender here, because he might be thinking that Jesse Gender is like a softer target that he can appeal to. He might not be able to sway H-Bomb, but he might be able to like win over some favor with the performative apologetics with Jesse Gender, who he perceives to be maybe more sympathetic or kind or whatever else. I don't know whether or not that's true.
One of the things, the main thing really, that I was supposed to do with my portion of the insurance money was I was supposed to make a movie. These were direct instructions from my mom herself. She'd been very much behind me when I decided, when I was about 10, that I wanted to be a filmmaker. And she wanted me to finally have the opportunity to do that, even if she never got to see it. So when the life insurance went bust, I decided to try and crowdfund it.
At least so now all the movies that he raised money for and lied about and didn't actually make, they were actually the literal dying wish of his mother. You can't possibly make this up. All those movies that I made like photoshopped posters for but never actually made because I have narcissistic dreams of being a filmmaker, that was literally my mother's dying wish.
It's enough to make a short film or two. This is what Telos grew out of. So what happened with Telos? Let me break down the timeline. When we launched the campaign in February of 2022, we hoped to raise $3,000 to produce a short film that we hoped that we would then use as a sort of proof of concept to attract investors, either private, public, or through Canada's telefilm program, to produce a feature. Some people online have stated that $3,000 never would have covered the cost of a short film, but these were not going to be unionized movies, and we were very clear about that up front. We wanted to be able to pay actors as best that we could, but we never expected to be able to reach typical union wages. The crew was going to be made up of people that I had gone...
Vosh, he literally ghosted major investors when they wanted to actually make one of the films. Yeah, because he didn't, again, watch the H-Bomb video. He didn't want to make any films. He wanted to be thought of as a filmmaker. So he was like, building hype around like some shitty, movie poster he cobbled together in Photoshop, but like any actual material attempt at producing a movie, like it didn't, nothing happened. And then there were like plagiarized, ideas there as well. It's like, that's it. He's just a narcissist. That's it. He's just a narcissist, and he wants to feel like a filmmaker. That's it.
On to film school with. Everyone, including Nick and myself, we were roommates at the time living on the East Coast, were more than happy to work behind the scenes for free. We planned on writing a movie.
How do you live such a pathetic life? Like, does he just stare at the wall all day when the camera isn't on? I think that narcissists, for the most part, are thought of as having like very unhappy internal worlds.
movie with a small cast and only 1 or 2 locations, ideally ones that we could get access to for free. Again, we assumed all of the money would go to the actors. We kind of looked at this as a sort of community theater troupe, but for filmmaking. After the campaign launched, it did infinitely better than we could have expected, and our ambitions grew. We started planning...
He copyright claimed archive channels. Oh, if he attempts to copyright strike this VOD or this video for covering this, then like that goes to court 100%. Yeah. The copyright strike process is annoying to deal with, but like at the end of the day, if you make that claim, that has to go through court. Like, yeah, 100%. Like I have more money than he does. Like that's not a winnable battle from his perspective. That would be like such a malicious abuse of the DMCA system. Like 100%.
To make a feature instead of a short film. And the plan was to take this around to film festivals. The feature we settled on, entitled Final Girl, was about the lone survivor of a slasher movie type massacre 10 years after the fact, as she was publishing a book about her ordeal. Drawing attention from people online convinced that she had actually been the killer all along. In the end, we would find out that the killer was the boyfriend of the girl who the main character had secretly been dating at the time of the killings. And most of the people he killed were, in his eyes, collateral damage as he made his way to our main character, because he was not happy that his girlfriend was cheating on him with a girl. And to those who say that I plagiarized the plot from the novel Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix, read the book. It's nothing like the plot of the movie. And the final girl is a trope.
Spoilers.
In horror movies. So if using the final girl trope is plagiarism, then basically everyone who's made a slasher movie since Texas Chainsaw Massacre owes the Tobe Hooper estate some money. But anyway, Nick and I planned out the movie.
These seem like relevant details. Yeah, again, like a lot of this, I feel like all I can really say is that you just have to watch the H-Bomb video to understand the scale and the depth of the lying that he's doing here. The idea that there's like any of these... even apart from the dishonesty in his framing and justification, like the extent of plagiarism and like dishonesty he engaged in can't be addressed. It's not addressable with anything other than like bowing your head to the ground and saying, I was a wretch and I will try not to be a wretch. There's no qualification to be done here. I guarantee you he's never going to bring up the lying about being sent death threats from the person who actually just like innocently pointed out the fact that he had engaged in plagiarism, because that's pretty much impossible to defend.
But I didn't want to start writing it until the campaign ended and the money was actually deposited. After the insurance debacle, I didn't want to count our chickens before they hatched.
You know, I'm playing this at 1.3 times speed. You want to hear him at base speed?
The money was officially deposited. I immediately began work on the screenplay. I finished it that summer, soon after Nick had left to spend 2 months...
Wait, I'm sorry. Hold on a second. Now that I'm watching it at regular speed, is he recording this at 24 frames a second?
At home in Ottawa, Ontario with family.
Oh my God. He is. Oh my God. He's using a digital camera and he's recording it at 24 frames a second. Oh my God. He probably thinks it's cinematic. Look at the contrast in this shot. He has no idea what he's doing. What's different about 24 frames of a noob? Never mind. It doesn't matter. It's not relevant to the video. Never mind. This is remarkable.
I sent the script to him to read right away because I was very proud of it. But Nick didn't want to.
This would be like a famous like stream artist getting caught having plagiarized, like traced, or just flat out copied hundreds of artists, and then in their apology video, they're wearing a horizontal striped long sleeve shirt, a black cap beret, and they're holding up a big paintbrush in front of an easel when all they've ever done is digital art, and they like earnestly are apologizing for 40 minutes while in front, like that is like the artist equivalent of what we're looking at right now.
Share his opinion on it until he got back to the East Coast. So in the meantime, I put out a preliminary casting call on local job boards. When Nick got back...
Did my man really not adjust the colors? No, look at the contrast and color grade on this. Where's the white point? Where's the black point? Why is the darkest point in this entire shot the blurry second camera he's flexing on in the background? Why is the depth of field like this? Why is he 2 inches from the camera? Why is he... What has he done with the field of view? Why is everything so pale? Why is he washed out? Why is there a blur right here at the edge of his forehead? Because the depth of field is so severe that his fuck-ass side bob is blending in with the background. His ears are blurry. Why does it look like this?
He believed that the script needed a page 1 rework. This is also when he told me that he'd be moving back to Ontario permanently soon, as he wanted to live closer to family and live in a bigger city with more opportunities. This was a punch to the gut for me. We had been living together since 2015 and had become quite dependent on each other. I felt like there was no way that I could make this movie without him. And since I had received not that many replies to the initial casting call, I took this as a sign that Ontario would be a better place to launch Telos, even though all my professional film connections were on the East Coast. That was a mistake. There, I had free access to the campground that would serve as the setting for a good portion of the movie.
Would it have been better if James had said literally nothing? Yes, you know? Because then people could at least imagine maybe possibly he was penitent. This is very bad.
As well as easy access to any number of houses, apartments, and even offices that friends of friends would let me use to shoot.
I'm so sorry. I can't get over filming at 24 frames. I genuinely can't. On YouTube, you go by 30 or 60. Why would you go by 24 in film? There are reasons you use 24 in film, not in just regular web video. I'm sorry.
In Ontario, I had none of that, which immediately put the brakes on Final Girl since there was no conceivable way of filming it, at least not within the budget that we had. After Nick and I moved to the Toronto area, he decided that he actually wanted to move.
Can you see the frame rate? Yeah, of course, but it's sped up right now. But when I slowed it down, I immediately noticed it was 24 FPS. Yes, he would have had to deliberately change it to 24 FPS.
Home to Ottawa, to the Ottawa area, about 5 hours away, at least for a little while. In the meantime, he would take a train to the GTA, the Greater Toronto Area, once a month to work on YouTube videos for a few days and then head back. This went on for a little less than a year. So I began brainstorming new movies that we could film in Ontario. This is where the multiple posters and teaser trailers came from. I was trying to create something tangible to show that work was still being...
Does 24 make the video file take less? No. He's doing it because that's what film cameras have historically shot at for a variety of reasons that have to do with like the exposure time on any given cell on a reel of film, for reasons that go back like 100 years or whatever. But the difference is that digital cameras don't shoot on film. They have sensor chips that read and like they line up the electrons and the data that they receive, like the light, the photons that hit them, and they send that over a certain amount of times per second, frames per second. And usually for web video, you do this at 30 FPS or 60 FPS. The reason why you don't usually like digital video being shot at a lower, choppier FPS, for the most part, unless you know what you're doing, which he doesn't, is that when you're recording with film, light burns onto sensitive, silver haloid crystals, which have variable textural resolution, meaning that as you move from frame to frame at 24 FPS, you have a sort of pleasant blurring of the texture of the film grain that leads to that very pleasant quality that you see when you go to the movie theater. When you go to the movie theater and you see a film reel being projected onto a screen, you're looking at like a bunch of photosensitive crystals having light shined through them. Those crystals, that mesh of crystals, aren't of even size, meaning that frame to frame, all of these essentially like pixels are being blurred temporally through like variable sizes and shapes. It's like a sort of pleasant texture. It's what you're used to when you see the theater. Film grain, the concept of film grain, there are a lot of things that we associate with like cinematic camera work that are a direct product of the technology that we use to shoot on film. But digital cameras just shoot to pixels, regular, consistent, perfectly square pixels, which isn't necessarily bad, but if you're running at a lower frame rate, you get this weird choppiness that doesn't necessarily show in film. Okay, we're moving on.
Being done with Telos. I wrote multiple...
He should know this, is my point. He should know this. I don't even wear the 2 black turtlenecks that I own. Because turtlenecks are he should know this. Okay.
Treatments for movies over the next few months, and Nick and I eventually landed on one called Antisocial, a murder mystery about a former social media clique who had gone their separate ways on very bad terms, and they were coming together.
I just checked YouTube chat. It's so cringe when Vosh acts like he knows something he doesn't know. I know this. F you, okay? I know this. I know what I'm talking about, okay? Don't you take this from me.
For a reunion as sort of VidCon event. They were all sharing a house, and then some of them were going to start showing up dead. Around the same time, summer of 20...
What?
For a reunion at a sort of VidCon event. They were all sharing a house, and then some of them were going to start showing up dead.
Okay, we're talking about the movie plot that nobody gives a shit about. No wonder I tuned out.
Around the same time, summer of 2023, Nick had moved to the GTA full-time. He and I spent weeks working out exactly how the murder mystery would parse out in the movie. We had a bunch of whiteboards up on my wall, and we were just breaking it down piece by piece. I'd put out a new casting call in the GTA and received hundreds of responses. So I was planning on casting as soon as the script was finished. But after trying to work out the numbers as far as paying actors went, plus locations, food, costumes, as well as the equipment that we'd already purchased and the legal costs of setting up Telos as a business, we realized that we'd gone way too big with this movie. The movie.
What did you have? Like $3,000? Is this a joke? $3,000 isn't enough for a short film if you're paying actors. You can't pay actors if you're running a film on 3,000. Is this a joke? You get volunteers together. That's it. Like, sorry, you have to. Like, yeah. You can pretend all you want, like, oh, this was about, like, I wasn't able to pay the actors what they want. Like, yeah, obviously $3,000 isn't enough to pay anyone shit. Maybe like you film on like a patch of dirt somewhere out of town for actors that are all in your town, and you give them like $1.50 or something. I don't know.
Too many characters and too many locations, and it was just way too complex to be able to pull off with the budget. So I started working on a script.
Multiple locations, paid actors. This is a joke. Nobody who had any sincere interest in making a movie project would honestly think this was doable off a few $1,000s. Like this would be like a person saying, yeah, I had like a really earnest effort, you know, like a really sincere and earnest effort to, like, I don't know, build this, like, I don't know, what's like a comparably sized project, build a video game, build some big multi-person project or whatever. But, you know, I had $5 to my name, and once I did all the math, I realized that it wasn't going to work out. So, you know, I just took the money and ran.
Script for a movie called The Listener, about a true crime podcaster focused on the mysterious deaths of homeless gay men in his city. I was a fair way into the script when we realized it'd be about a year before we could even film anything, since winter was on its way and the story relied heavily on a summer setting.
Okay. Then write it for the winter. Or wait a year. If you wanted to do a quick project, why...
So we went back to the drawing board yet again, finally settling on a modern-day adaptation of The Vampire, based on the book by John Polidori. It's one of the original works of published vampire fiction. It's never received a proper film adaptation.
I'm lost. What is he even rambling about? He knows that he can't address the accusations leveled at him in the H-Bomber Guy video because he's a monstrously bad person who lies about everything, and it's impossible for him to justify. So instead, he's waffling. He's digging into the details. He's yapping. He's basically saying, like, oh, this one very specific subset of accusations, well, actually, like, I was totally sincerely and earnestly interested in making this, these short films. But then for all of these, it was my mother's dying wish for me to make short films, but then the insurance didn't pay out, so I had like no money, and then I realized it wouldn't work, and blah, blah, blah. Like, it has nothing to do with what's being talked about. Oh, us too, Beetle Moses. This white boy makes us all uncomfortable. That's true. The dog ate my homework over and over and over.
And was in public domain, so we thought it would be a great choice. And the cast could be kept down to basically 5 characters, with only 2 of them being on screen most of the time.
I know he's lying, but each lie just makes him sound like even more of a idiot. Like, this just makes him seem incompetent. Yeah, exactly. His lies reveal not only dishonesty, but also the fact that he doesn't know enough about what he's talking about to construct good lies. It's like the 24 FPS thing. A person who knows more about the process of making films can construct more convincing lies about why he wasn't able to use the money that he got to make these films. I could construct more interesting lies. I'd be willing to bet that I know more about filmmaking than he does. Remarkably, in spite of me not knowing very much about it. But we're talking about a pretty low bar here. Like, this is a level of, like, he's betraying his ignorance in a way that makes this worse for him, I feel.
And I both wrote treatments for it, which we planned on melding together into a final treatment that we would write the script based off of. We'd had a meeting about it, and we were talking about how best to move forward, how fast we could get the script written, how long it would take to cast, how soon we could start shooting. We knew that it had been a while since the initial funding of Telos came in, and we wanted to get something concrete out as soon as possible. After the meeting,
I've never met a single indie filmmaker who scraps a project due to weather or having to wait to shoot. Yeah, because indie filmmakers typically like filmmaking. They'll do anything. They'll do wacky shit, dude. They'll find like one patch of ground that doesn't have snow on it because it got shoveled and there was one warm day, so the remaining frost like melted and it just looks wet and dewy, you know? Like, they'll shoot indoors and pretend it's outdoors by adding like a fake yellow haze to the light. They don't give a Indie filmmakers do lots of crazy shit. Why wouldn't they? They're indie filmmakers. Like, that's the whole point. This, like, constant waffling. Did this guy ever go out and do a single day of shooting? In the years and all of these projects, a single day of shooting? Did he ever use these cameras? Because it seems like he didn't. Yeah, I've worked with indie operations. They're hardcore. Yeah, they are, because they care. They care more than anyone.
We went to dinner, and while at dinner, I started getting messages about the H-Bomber guy video. We were in over our heads once we left the East Coast, but the intention was never, ever, to take the money and run. I was so insanely excited about getting to make Telos a reality. I was excited about getting to make a short film, let alone a feature. It's always been my dream to make movies, so Telos meant...
Really? Is that true? Is that true? Do you aspire to be a filmmaker, James Somerton? Is that true?
And means the world to me. For Nick, it was a very exciting project, but not his passion. Nick wanted to write novels. He still does.
The whole video just feels like Please Pity Me. Yep.
That was way more fulfilling than writing video essays. I should have stayed where I was and not gone to Ontario. The move uprooted everything that was solid about Telos.
Yeah, he created his new Patreon 23 hours ago, so this is just promoting his new money funnel. Yep, James Somerton X. There we go. 3 posts, 3 tiers, silver, gold, platinum. Very original. Does it show how many total members? 2. Paid members? 1.
Took a whole year to get it back onto even anything close.
Again, I just want to be clear by no bottling sunshine, not at all. He's doubling down. He's lying about everything. Again, I want to be clear. I'm not opposed to the concept of people like growing or improving or like, I don't want any of this to read as some kind of like broad opposition to the concept of people changing. But like, holy shit, man, people have to change for them to change. This video is a doubling down on every negative character trait H-Bomb accurately identified. This just validates the criticisms. Anyway, if I remember the timestamp correctly, we're about to get to the long-awaited suicide and self-harm content warning section.
To stable footing. But I am working with a producer now, so you can expect an actual product from Telos this year. It will likely be a short film to start off, but there is going to be something coming out of Telos this year.
I can't wait.
I know I've lost your trust, but I will make nothing financially from this project. The money that is there will go wholly to paying queer artists to work on a queer film. I am not, nor have I ever intended to be, one of the people paid by Telos. Neither was Nick. We made this very clear to everyone who asked. During our work on Telos is also when the YouTube channel started getting sponsors, which, as I said, as someone who grew up poor, I basically accepted all of them, except for a few that I didn't think lined up with the message of the channel or had some bad news surrounding them. But there were a couple that had some anti-trans stuff going on in the news, and I just didn't.
What? Wait, I don't remember this from the H-Bomb video. Did he accept... Wait, he's saying he didn't accept anti-trans sponsors. Why would an anti-trans sponsor even email him? I get, like, hundreds of emails from sponsors, but it's always like, you know, NordVPN or what, like, you know, the ones you'd expect. Never anything like that. The only time I've ever gotten a political, like, explicitly political sponsorship offer was Black Rifle Coffee, actually. Which I said yes to, obviously. I've been infusing all of my videos with subliminal Black Rifle Coffee messaging.
Want to associate with that. But by accepting as many sponsors as we did, which became very important when Nick and I started living apart and suddenly had 2 rents to pay, we ended up needing to produce even more videos, which, along with the work on Telos and making sure everything was okay with my dad while living thousands of kilometers away.
You won't do a VPN sponsorship? VPNs don't really do the things they say that they do. It's complicated and it varies, but like VPNs lie about what they can do quite a bit, which I don't want to be a participant in.
Meant I had even less time for writing, putting more stress on Nick and leading to even more copy pasting from me. That's what led to us putting out, I think, 6 videos in 1 month at one point. It might have been 5, but in any case, it was way too damn many videos to go out in 1 month. We tried to take the summer off from YouTube in 2023 to work on Telos exclusively, but even that went up in smoke because my housing situation just...
You steal because of stress. Notice how he's admitting that what he said before is a lie. Because earlier he said the reason why that plagiarism never got addressed is because he forgore skull emoji. But now he's like, yeah, we didn't have the time, so I plagiarized more. Which is probably closer to the truth. Yeah, he wanted money. He wanted to gun out as much content as possible for money and sponsorships. So he just plagiarized more. That's the true answer right there. Yeah, the bullshit about him forgetting that he had plagiarized? No, of course not. So, like, he's kind of undoing an earlier lie. Like, what if this is the case, then clearly the memory problems aren't the issue here. If he can do this like 6 times in 1 month, and if it's affected by the speed with which he produces content.
I won't go into it here. I've talked about it ad nauseum on streams and stuff. If you followed me on social media, you know the cluster I ended up in that led to me moving twice in 2 months. In the last couple of months, I've received a lot of emails, as you can imagine, many from people who were rightfully let down. Some from people threatening everything from doxing to violence because of the internet. Some with the kindest words of support I've ever heard, and others simply asking why I made it so difficult to contact me and if I was okay. They wanted to know why, as they put it, I nuked my social media presence.
Wait, if he has such a memory problem, why would anyone support his new film project? Yeah. He's going to come out with a short film that's going to have like unedited 6-minute portions cut from other films, spliced together with his own much worse, like, own made, where he's going to be, oh, man, I left that in the cut as like inspiration. I was going to, sorry, guys. How did those get in there?
To be frank, it's because I didn't want to exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
If you watched my honestly horrendous apology video back in December, you know I tried to make that happen. The not existing thing. But it was more intense than taking too many pills. It's not that I didn't want to be alive anymore. It's that I wished I'd never existed at all. That everyone I'd ever known would be better off had I just never been there. Very George Bailey, which is fitting.
Yeah. Oh, very, very cinematic. Yeah. Not even a moment of sincerity here. It's yes, very tugs at my turtleneck. You know. Of course. Me either, Beetle Moses. Very, very untrustworthy eyelids. Yeah, like given how much shit he got like nuked for in when the H bomb fell and blew him up, you know, I am not surprised that he would be suicidal about it. I don't want to like treat the topic lightly, but like obviously in a video packed with like sympathy bait, dishonest bullshit, it's really difficult to like engage with this earnestly, I suppose, or sincerely. I mean, I guess we'll read the vibes.
Even that it was Christmas time. It's only thanks to some very, very dedicated doctors and nurses and one very good friend that I'm even here able to film this right now. I'm not going to name her because I don't want to expose anyone else to the small but seriously unstable group of people who watched the plagiarism in YouTube video and thought, well, he should be dead. Like I said, it was a very small group, but when they find out your address, and some of them are actually in your city, they can be terrifying. And they did find my address. And at least a couple of them showed up while I was at the hospital. My neighbors did report them to the police. And I won't go into any more details than that. I'm not sure if I legally even can, but there's a reason.
No proof, no belief. Yeah, I want to be so flippant about this. It's just like, fucking dude lies about everything, you know? But like, okay, sure. Say it happened. All right. I do think it's a little bit weird to mix like the doxing and the suicide attempt bit together, because those are very different. That's like an internal and an external thing kind of being blended together in like a big mush of like feel bad for me. I don't know, man. Like, if it really is a narcissism thing, it's just like the problem fundamentally is inside the skull with him. I don't know. I have no idea like what it would take to make somebody like James Somerton not be like him. Like to make him better, to make him not like this. I have no idea. Yeah, if only he could forget the bad parts of himself.
I left Ontario within a week of getting the okay to do so from the doctors. So what's next then? Like I said, You'll notice that a few of my videos are live again on the channel. These ones don't come from plagiarized content, and for the most part are written entirely by Nick. Nick lost 3 years worth of work when everything on the channel was taken down, and that's simply not fair to Nick. He worked hard writing those videos and deserves to have something to point to when he's looking for new writing work. I've also done some heavy editing on other videos that did contain other people's writing, breaking it down to only original content, again, so that Nick has an actual portfolio of work. As mentioned at the beginning of the video, revenue from these will be going to the H-Bomber Guy team.
Yeah, it's the way he phrases shit, too. Yeah, Nick didn't lose 3 years of work. You destroyed it. Like, again, he did this. H-Bomb called him out for doing this in the video where he said, like, James Somerton knew he was plagiarizing, and then when there were plagiarism accusations thrown at James Somerton, his response was, well, Nick does a lot of the writing, and Nick would never do that. Nick would never... He would never do that. Which is clearly because James knows he's plagiarizing, setting Nick up to take the fall in the future. That if plagiarism is ever found out, he can point at Nick and say, like, oh, Nick, like, you did this. Like, that's the only reason you would say that, is if you were trying to set Nick up to take the fall. And then the fall came, but it landed squarely on James Somerton, not on Nick. And then now he's still like, well, Nick was hurt by this. You hurt him. You did this. Also, now, years later, he can remember what was his own content and what was plagiarized. Good point, Keytars Forever. How does he know the videos that he's put up now weren't plagiarized? If he can't remember when he's reading and reading out loud the script for these videos, what was or wasn't plagiarized, how does he know the videos that he's unprivated now weren't plagiarized? Can he remember now? How does he know any one of those paragraphs could have been from somebody else? Or did he know the entire time and the forgetting thing was just complete horseshit that he made up, like, on the fly?
To be sent out to the writers I plagiarized from or donated to charity. However it works out in the end. These edited videos will be going back up on the channel in the next few days, I think, along with 2 completed video essays that we didn't actually get to release before everything happened. There's also some recent videos.
If anyone finds plagiarism in the videos that he's putting up, it's... Because you know people are going to be scrutinizing those videos like crazy. Oh, man.
That didn't have any plagiarism that the sponsor asked to be taken down and their ads removed. So they'll also be going back up without the sponsors, obviously. And soon I will be releasing a new video written entirely by me, properly cited, with all sources credited. Maybe no one will watch it, but I hope you do. I want to prove that I have the ability to do this without abusing other people's work. It's a very different kind of video than I used to make, though.
But you don't. That's the problem, though. You don't, and that's why you steal. You're not good at it. Because being good at something means having the ability to critically analyze your own work. That's what being good at something requires. Nobody magically gets good at something, right? A critical eye to what you produce is necessary, which is one of the reasons why very talented people are often very hard on themselves, because those two things come hand in hand. You can't get to be one without the other. Nobody gets to be talented while also having bad taste in the thing they're talented in, a lack of skill in understanding what is or isn't good. They need to come together. There is a relationship between plagiarism and like an inability to produce good things. You know? Like it's not just incidental. He lacks the Promethean fire, exactly. Now, I don't think that's fundamental. I don't think it's innate. I think James Somerton could improve, but it would require a mindset. And I think that I'm going to speak really generally here, but I do feel there's some truth to this. I feel like the attributes that we associate with narcissism are anathema to the attributes we associate with talent, or being good at something, or being skilled, or like being able to develop a skill set or whatever else. That narcissism generally acts against your ability to do those things, because that like wild, low self-esteem whiplash between your self-perception being high and being low doesn't necessarily work. Kanye West isn't a narcissist. He's a megalomaniac. That's definitely a different thing. I think that by narcissism, I don't just mean self-absorbed. I specifically mean like the traits that James Somerton is demonstrating here. Not always true chess grandmasters sometimes cheat. I don't know what that has to do with what I said. Never mind. It's too broad of a point. I don't feel like spending 30 minutes arguing it. He really cooked with this one, huh? This is the statement from Nick. So this is what Nick has to say about all this, because I don't actually know. Do we have any reason to believe that Nick was complicit in the dishonesty, or was he like genuinely a victim of James Somerton? Because my impression was of the latter, that he was a victim of it. How is Nick still able to post from so far under the bus?
I'd say it's more of a documentary than a video essay. You won't find my opinions anywhere in there, just cited facts. I'd like to keep making videos like these new ones about people and events in gay history and definitive gay movies that you maybe never heard of. Stuff like that. It's actually something that I planned on doing this year anyway.
If he wanted to get better, you know what's one thing that I think he could do? I think he should stop with the "this is queer media for queer people, queer actors, queer, queer, queer." He has had a history of shielding himself with the aesthetic of progressivism. I think that he could benefit a little bit from dialing down the aesthetic, because that seems to be what he cares about most. The aesthetic about of being a filmmaker, the aesthetic of being a pretentious black turtleneck wearing documentarian snob, the aesthetic of being some kind of like bulwark of the queer community. I think that he could do less aesthetically. I think that he needs to do away with the aesthetic, and he just needs to focus on making a short film. Just make anything. Make a thing. Have opinions on a thing. Create something new. But stop thinking about, like, because the more you obsess over the aesthetic, right? Like, the more things you have to distract you from the actual quality of the product. Not for most people, mind you. I don't think there's anything that detracts from the quality of a movie if you go into it attempting to make it about queer issues. But for James Somerton specifically, I think it seems to be a distraction. I think he could go back to the basics and just make a thing, anything, you know?
There would be 2 videos a month. Nick would write a video essay, and I would write one of these documentary-style videos that would fulfill the 2 videos per month sponsorship deal that we had at the time. I have no sponsors now, so probably not going to be 2 videos a month. It'll probably just be the one, which will give more time for research and citation and crediting and making sure that there is no misinformation in the videos, which I know that misinformation made its way into our past videos.
Made its way, you know, like on its own, you know, a dandelion fluff drifting on a breeze landed errantly on the script of the video.
That was not something that we intended. In some cases, it was information that I was told by people that I considered experts. In other cases, it was information that we had researched. In other cases, it was things that Nick had learned in university. The point being, it was never malicious. We weren't trying to lie about things, despite what a lot of people think. This is so, it's so Weasley. Nobody tries to put misinformation in their documentary script unless they're trying to like make a specific point. You just didn't care. That's the accusation here isn't, you know, James Somerton was ideologically motivated to put random misinformation in the documentary. No, you just didn't care to research it because you didn't write these scripts. You were lazy and you didn't really go over them. Like, that's not the accusation. Not trying to spread misinformation. That was not.
See, trying to. The accusation isn't that you were trying to. That's not like
ever our intention. And that's something else that I want to apologize for. As for my Patreon, everyone can stop worrying about me relaunching it right in time for a billing cycle. That will not be happening. I don't want anyone who either doesn't know about the plagiarism or simply forgot to unsubscribe to get billed. So I'm going to start from 0. I have
from 1 as of now.
Together a new Patreon account. So if you want to support my documentaries about gay history, fantastic. Honestly, your faith in me after everything means the world to me. If not, I completely understand. Like I said, I've lost your trust. I'm going to work my ass off to earn it back, though. And I know for some of you, I'll never be able to do that, but I'm going to try anyway. There's a link in the description to the Patreon if you want to join it, where you'll be able to see the two yet to be released videos right now, as well as, take part in other stuff that will be on there, like a book club, podcasts, voting on upcoming videos.
Again, to be clear, I really don't think there's any coming back from this. Not only all of the malicious dishonesty, but then in this video also the malicious dishonesty. It's ridiculous. I don't think he can stop himself. It would be better for him if he did a super upfront and direct address to all of the accusations made, a context video, if you will. It would have been better for him. I think that it would have required some level of introspection, though, and I don't think he can do that. I really mean that. I don't think that he can understand what other people want to see from him, so he can't even imitate the image of a person who is upset or penitent or apologizing or whatever else. He doesn't even know how to look the part, let alone actually do the thing.
The usual.
So it's just sociopathy. Well, antisocial personality disorder is a pretty broad, there's a lot that goes into that. He just reads like a really clear narcissist to me. That's just the vibe. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a shrink. I don't know. It's just he is like radiating that energy. He's like what's that Pixar movie with the blue bitch where they're in the brain and they make the girl sad or whatever? What's that one? Not Inside Job. That's a different thing. Inside Out. That's it. Inside Out. Yeah. Yeah. He's like the inside out character of narcissism. Like he's got like a little black turtleneck and a ass bob, and he's inside the brain, and his name is Narcissism, and he makes you say stupid shit. Like that's like he's acting the stereotype to me, which is why I say it. He exists inside all of us. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter, but do you think he's giggling and making fun of his fans when the camera's off, or is he really lost in his own sauce? I think he might be lost in it. I think that something that's really difficult for a lot of people to understand, and reasonably so, because it's weird to think about, is that it is possible for a person to know they're lying, but then believe their lie. It's weird, and it doesn't make sense, and it's irrational, but obviously people aren't perfectly rational. For a person to maliciously lie, to sit there concocting a lie and working it through and thinking on how they're going to apply it and how they're going to deceive people, but then for them to earnestly believe it after they've concocted it is a thing that people do. It is a thing people are capable of doing. Obviously, everyone can do this on some level because humans are rationalization machines. You convince yourself of things. That's how we act. But for the most part, when people know they're lying, they know they're lying. I think that it takes a very specific kind of person to do this consistently. I don't really know. It's weird. It's weird. It's weird. I'm not a psych expert. I just know it's a thing that happens. My job puts me in contact with a lot of liars. It happens a lot here. It's,
Usual Patreon stuff. But this video is not about promoting myself. This video is about me apologizing. And I am incredibly sorry. It was never my intention for anyone.
Sorry about what? Using your mother's dying wish with no money because the insurance company screwed you over to earnestly, sincerely, with no fault, try to make movies? Or what? Apologize for having a disabling memory issue that caused you to plagiarize dozens of authors and then forget to that you plagiarized them and just run with their scripts unedited? Apologize for what? You've done nothing wrong. Sorry for being the victim of incredible poor circumstance. Sorry for being the subject of the universe's woes and misfortune. What have you done wrong, James Somerton? I ask you. Sorry for being me. Sorry for being such a little birthday boy. He's just a little birthday boy, and you all attacked him, and he's sorry for being a little birthday boy.
To feel hurt or left out or excluded. It was never my intention to spread misinformation, and I'm really sorry that happened.
Sorry.
And as much as I've tried to explain myself in this video, the memory issues, the ADHD, the personal things that were going on in my life with my mom getting sick and then dying and trying to make sure that my dad was okay following that and everything, those aren't excuses. There is no excuse for what I did. There are lots of people who make videos on YouTube.
No excuse for what I did. Just, the entire video's like runtime is dedicated to setting all of these up as like a, stacking set of justifications. Like,
There are lots of people who make podcasts, TV shows, movies, documentaries, who have shit going on in their lives that's very stressful. And they don't plagiarize people's work. There is no excuse for what I did. For everything.
For forgetting? For having a memory issue? I thought you were just a birthday boy who had a memory issue. What do you mean? I thought you just, used portions of this script that you would copy paste in as a jumping off point, but then you'd forget what you wrote and you didn't write because you forgot, It's kind of inconsistent. Like, why apologize if you did nothing wrong? Like, what? Like...
that happened, whether it be with my mom or the memory issues, there was something I could have done to mitigate that. There's nothing I could have done about my mom getting cancer. But knowing my patrons, as I did, in hindsight, I'm pretty damn sure that if I had said, guys, I need to step away for a couple of months to deal with this, I don't think a whole lot of people would have fled the Patreon.
Yeah, no shit, obviously.
Part of me thought they would at the time because I catastrophize, but I really don't think that would have happened. Even in the very beginning, when I was like, oh, I got to get as many videos out as possible. If I had said to those people who subscribed to the channel early on, for the next video, I want to make sure that it's fully correct and I want to make sure that, it's as high quality as it can possibly be. I don't think anyone would have, unsubscribed or not watched the next video because it didn't come out a couple of weeks after the algorithm decided that I was important for some reason. I convinced myself of
yeah, that's narcissism. All his life, he's had to apologize because people express anger at him, not because he recognized any harm he's done. For me, it's not about like recognizing harm done because he has like talked about that. It's just the stacking dishonest excuses, I think the best thing that he could have done in this video. Okay, we're doing the optics workshop. From me, known person who's great at optics and doesn't get in trouble publicly all the time. I'm thinking like, what could you have done to improve on this? In James Somerton's position, like, what could a guy who's lied that maliciously possibly say? Like, what could he possibly do? And to an extent, I think he couldn't have done anything. I actually think this might be, like, an insurmountable barrier. I literally made a video saying why James Somerton can't come back to YouTube, because I don't... Again, there's who you are on the inside, and there's who you present yourself as. And if you consistently lie, maliciously lie, not just out of desperation or convenience, but like willfully and maliciously, you really destroy people's ability to think there's any relationship between who you present yourself as and who you actually are on the inside. That being said, I think the thing he could have benefited from most would have been, this video should have been longer. It should have talked about more specific stuff that H-Bomber guy brought up. For instance, him preemptively throwing Nick under the bus, or him lying about another person, sending him death threats when he had just been called out for plagiarism. I think the best thing that he could have done is make the majority of the video a stacking set of explanations of what he did wrong and why he did it. And none of these bullshit excuses or whatever, because the truth is, he is the way he is because he wants to be a filmmaker. He wants to be thought of as a filmmaker. He saw the incredible talent and work of other people who understood these things better than him. And he, at first, a little bit, but then over time, more and more, jealously and avariciously copied portions of their text, thinking in his head at the time, oh, it's just a little bit. Oh, I'm crediting. But over time, it grew into a larger and larger monster. And then, without excuse or justification, he just explains how he became just a right bastard, how he grew incredibly dependent on it and anxious other people would find out, so he lied and he had to like make more lies to cover up those lies, and he lived in constant terror that his lies would be found out. So naturally he has to lie more to cover it up, and he has to plagiarize more because at this point he doesn't even remember how to write a script or construct an opinion. I think that if he built up this case, because the thing is, in order to do this, you would have to sincerely understand and believe and be able to communicate how you were. None of this, my mother's dying wish, I forgot, memory issues, blah, blah, blah. Just a full-on, like, straightforward, yeah, I've been a monster, this is how. And then the whole thing is just him explaining it and what his thought process was, without defending or justifying. And then at the end, he could say, listen, I have made, like, more mistakes than anyone in any career could rightly get away with. You know, I don't think I'm entitled to or deserve any, like, charitability or fair play or Patreon money after any of this. But in spite of everything, in spite of every mistake that I've made, in spite of every poor decision, every lie, every person that I've hurt, in spite of all of it, I can't help something. And that's the fact that beyond all of it, I really do still want to make short films. No matter what I've done, I still want that, and I'm still going to work towards that. Whether or not you care or want to support it is entirely up to you. I'm going to give it my best. If you think it's good, if you think it's not, it will still be, for what I'm capable of offering, my best shot. Or something like that. I think that would probably be the best possible way for him to run it through. Now, of course, like, that needs to be heavily, heavily workshopped and, like, thought out, and it would have to be quite long, and it would have to be, like, achingly sincere. That's the problem. He can't do sincerity because he lies all the time. That's the whole problem. But, like, that's what he would have to do. Now, what I'm describing at the moment is something narcissists are borderline biologically incapable of. Which is why you're all familiar with the classic, I'm sorry you feel that way, rather than the, like, this is specifically what I did wrong, because that would require, like, an investigation of the fallible thought process of the narcissist, which they can't stand, and blah, blah. So Lindsay Ellis has a great video on narcissism in the context of the Loki show that I think you guys should watch, I think, because there's a lot there that is relevant to what's happening here. But that, I think, I don't know if that would have fixed things. I don't know if that would have given him an in. I think that would have been the best way forward. That would have been the most rational way outcome. Now, keep in mind, I'm assuming a lot. Everything that I'm saying right now, that's just what I think the, like, best possible outcome is. I don't know if that's how he feels, and I don't think he should lie, because, again, that's the whole issue. But assuming everything I just said would have been, from his perspective, sincere, I think that would have been a good way to go about it. Does everyone get me? Does that track? Is that okay? All right, cool. Just making sure.
These things, but I don't think, in hindsight, looking at it, I don't think any of that would have happened. And so there is no excuse for the misinformation, and there is certainly no excuse for the plagiarism. I f***ed up bad. I stole people's words and thoughts and opinions that they worked incredibly hard writing and publishing and finding someone to publish their thoughts and opinions.
This sounds better, but again, it doesn't really reveal the thought process. He lied about the thought process. His excuse for this is his memory issues. That's the problem. That's what you need to reveal. That's the critical part of any apology. Not that you're sorry, not that it was bad or harm was done, but why did you do it? And when it came time for him to give that answer, his answer was, mom died, cat died, dog died, car crashed, memory issues, head injury. When it came time to reveal his thought process, it was just like this interminable list of misfortune that he has weathered, you know, like a champion, which just doesn't.
It's in research. Hard.
Like, man, your mom dying is like a pretty good excuse to bad behavior too. That's horrible. Like, dude could literally be like, look, honestly, after my mom died, like, I didn't give a shit. I didn't give a shit. I was terrified. I felt like I could fall into poverty at nothing. I wanted to make videos. I just didn't care. I didn't even think about it in a lot of cases. Like, that's actually not only like a pretty defensible line to go down, it would have also been, I think, probably to an extent, even in his case, true. I would also give less of a shit about something like plagiarism after my mom died. Like, yeah, that doesn't like morally justify it. I'm just saying in terms of like presenting the thought process, but like,
heard research that they had done. And, you know, in some cases I put their names in the opening credits, which I thought was fine, but like I said, I've spoken with some of these people now, and I understand why that was not okay. Because putting someone's name in the opening credits, you know, okay, here's a list of people. Here's, 7 or 8.
See, this is also bullshit. The like, oh yeah, I used like 800 words of your script and incorporated it in a way that hid where it came from and didn't directly attribute it in the script, but I put your name floating at the front of the hour 10-minute video, so, I thought that was okay. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. That's a lie. No, you didn't. You put effort into hiding it.
People who are, even if it was, everyone, even if it wasn't, taking giant chunks of their work, paragraphs at a time, even if it was just a sentence here or there, putting their name in the opening credits doesn't tell anyone where their work is in the video. Nobody can say, oh, I really liked that opinion, or wow, that's a really, smart observation.
So what if the whole thing was sincere and he's not great at presenting it? Well, he is lying. Like, a lot of his lies here are pretty transparent. But if that was the case, then that's it. Unfortunately, who you are on the inside literally doesn't matter to anyone ever from birth to death. Who you present yourself as is the only thing that matters. Who you are has an influence on who you present yourself as. So it's not like there's no correlative. There's an influence, but there's no bonus points for having a rich and honest inner world. You need to do good things to be good, and say good things to be thought of as good.
And I want to read more from this person. And then, to find something you found interesting, you have to go play detective. And so, yes, just putting their name in the opening credits was wrong. I thought it was cool and, cinematic, but it was wrong. Citations should have been done properly. There should never have been just chunks of text being put into videos. There were times, like with the Queer History of Hollywood videos that I released this past spring. They were based directly on The Celluloid Closet by Vito Russo, the book, not the documentary. I expanded on it quite a bit, but it was based directly on Vito's work, and I credited him in the opening credits. And I thought it was okay to just do that.
This is also a lie. H-Bomber guy went over this section extensively. It's not just based on the book. There were like massive sections of his videos that were essentially the same as the existing documentary on it. So it wasn't so much him expanding on the book, it was just him making his own version of the documentary that existed. Like, again, he's just lying. He's just rewording H-Bomb's criticisms as his own. He doesn't understand the harm. No, I don't think he understands. I don't think he understands the criticisms. He's not even acting in his own self-interest here. This isn't like a crafty lying. He just doesn't know. He doesn't get it.
Because the book was out of print, and Vito had passed away, unfortunately, from HIV complications due to HIV and AIDS. And I looked at it more as extending his legacy, making sure that people knew
God almighty. Jesus.
about the work that he did. But I don't think I ever mentioned his name in those videos. He was, like I said, his name's in the opening credits. But I don't think I ever verbally mentioned his name. Someone who I have so much respect for. It's kind of an idol of mine.
See, yeah, that's a very normal thing. Doing a big documentary to expand on the legacy of an idol who recently died of AIDS/HIV, whatever, and then not like saying it. It's a very normal. All of this was directly addressed in H-Bomb's video. This is like, if you need to go when this goes up as a video or whatever else, you should go and watch the. Here, can I find the section? 2:15:11. Now there's all this shit to scroll through.
The Celluloid Closet is a documentary about the portrayal of homosexuality.
H-Bomb, please don't copyright claim me. I'm but a humble soldier in your stead. I am just using this to make a point about him lying about the way he used the celluloid closet. Please, God.
Across the history of Hollywood, with plenty of interviews with film historians, writers, directors, and actors. The structure and narrative is based on the book of the same name by Vito Russo, who passed away from complications of AIDS before the documentary could be made.
I've heard about
this. The
this.
first 30 minutes of Unrequited is just the celluloid closet. James Illuminati'd it. He downloaded a copy of the documentary, loosely paraphrased it, and as footage for the video he uses the same clips the documentary used of the movies it talked about. He also reuses the more pivotal interviews, adding his own titles so it looks like he got them from somewhere else. James wants to protect...
Again, like, yeah, the H-Bomb video makes this clear. There's no getting out of this. James Somerton desperately wants to play this off like it was some kind of like oopsie or whatever. He maliciously and deliberately made an effort to rip off and lie and like pass it off as his own to try to cover the tracks. If he had made no effort to cover his tracks, it would have been more defensible. But that, that signals intent. You don't cover your tracks without, trying to cover your tracks.
pretend to be a scholar of film history, when in fact he watched a documentary and is now pretending it's his. He never credits the documentary as a source when he's doing this. He even pulls my favorite trick, which I've come to call the Blair Classic. He quotes film historian Richard Dyer.
Your ideas about who you are don't just come from inside you, they come from the culture. And in this culture, they come especially from the movies. So we learn from the movies what it means to be a man or a woman, what it means to have sexuality. Richard Dyer, film historian.
It's actually Richard Dyer. Would you like to know how I know that?
Your ideas about who you are don't just
Wait,
come
you
from
will
inside
copyright
you,
me.
from the culture. And in this culture, they come especially from the movies.
He has his own special spin on this trick, too.
The lesbian experience isn't really expressed in the film at all, and even Shirley MacLaine has gone on record in 1996 saying William Wyler, the director, never even spoke to her about the lesbian elements.
What he's neglecting to mention is the place MacLaine went on record in 1996 is the celluloid closet.
Right. I think I've made the point. Now let's rewind 15 seconds in this James Somerton video.
In those videos, he was correct. Like I said, his name's in the opening due to HIV and AIDS, and I looked at it more as extending his legacy, making sure that people knew about the work that he did. But I don't think I ever mentioned his name. I credited him and on The Celluloid Closet by Vito Russo, the book, not the documentary.
The book, not the documentary. He was making it off the book, not the documentary.
Expanded on it quite a bit, but it was based directly on Vito's work.
I mean, he directly ripped like structure and quotes from the movie documentary that was made in the book. You know, like to the point of like editing the titles to make it look like he was using his own footage rather than ripping it directly from the existing documentary. Whole scenes.
I credited him in the opening credits, and I thought it was okay to just do that because the book was out of print and Vito had passed away, unfortunately, from HIV complications due to HIV and AIDS. And I
like that little reveal too. He thought it was okay to do that because the author was dead. What does that imply about what's going on in his head? What is he thinking right now? What do you think is going on up there in the skull? You know, this idol of mine died of AIDS, so I thought it was okay for me to just like rip this shit. Like, does he think plagiarism only is a thing if the author yeah, like what he's thinking of, what he's revealing right here is he can't go after me. If I plagiarize, the author's dead. Who's going to be bothered? Who's going to notice?
looked at it more as extending his legacy, making sure that people knew about the work that he did. But I don't think I ever mentioned his name in those videos. He was correct.
Curiously, according to H-Bomb, I'm not watching James Somerton videos to double check, the documentary that he ripped so much information from.
I said his name's in the opening credits, but I don't think I ever verbally mentioned his name. Someone who I have so much respect for, who's kind of an idol of mine, and I never mentioned his name. It wasn't because I didn't respect him or anything like that. And it also wasn't because I wanted people to think that this was all me. Again, if that was the case, I wouldn't have put his name in the credits.
Jesus Christ. You can tell this wasn't some kind of like desperate effort to plagiarize and cover my tracks in spite of the fact that I did exactly that. Because, you know, a person who really tried to do that wouldn't cover their bases by putting their name in the credits. You know, the thing that plagiarists constantly do as a way of, it's pretty bad, guys. It's pretty bad.
I never wanted people to think that this was all me. So that's actually one of the videos I want to make. I want to make a documentary style video talking about Vito Russo and his life and everything that he accomplished, because he didn't just write The Celluloid Closet. He did a lot more than that. He's someone that people should know about. Obviously, people can research him. There's books about him. But I know, it's easier to sit down and watch a 20 or 30-minute YouTube video than it is to read a book. I'd like to make a video about Vito Russo, properly cited and not just, copy pasted from a book. I want to do.
It's a weird way to explain the concept of videos over books because it's easier to watch. I mean, that's true, but you can synthesize information into a new format all the time. Like, don't you think the really defensible element would be you're adding your own twist to it, or you're making like I don't think that my live streams, even my unedited, unplanned, unscripted live streams, are just inferior replications of comparable content in books. I'm delivering this, I'm the presenter, the entertainer. There's a creative flair. I choose how to speak. Like, I don't know. It's just a weird thing to say.
Do the work. I want to prove, not just to you, but to myself, that I can do the work. And that's why I've started making these documentaries, working on these. I can't really put into words how sorry I am.
Sorry.
I've tried. I've tried writing like a blog entry to say that I was sorry for about 2 months now. And I can't get across how sorry I am. And I know actions speak way louder than words. And I hope with my actions that I can show you that I am sorry. I'm sorry to everyone I plagiarized. I'm sorry to everyone I've hurt. I'm sorry to people who feel lied to. I'm sorry to people.
Man, H-Bomb is going to rip the into this. There is no way he doesn't. He's probably going to make a video on his second channel. I would be livid if I was H-Bomb to have put all that effort into proving what a piece of shit this guy is, and then he tries one stupid weepy apology, immediately deletes it, and then comes out with a second, more well-produced one that's even more dishonest than the first one. I would be fuming if I was him. This has to be 100% what H-Bomb meant when he said this guy has no willingness or desire to change. Yes, H-Bomb was right. He's always been the most right bread tuber, whatever that means. He always has. He's right. Now, I don't think H-Bomb would do that. No, he would, and I know that because when this guy came out with his first weepy apology, H-Bomb tore into it on Twitter. Nah, H-Bomb smells blood in the air. And he should! Behavior like this has to be stigmatized. It's inhuman. I mean that. Like, I don't think people with narcissism are, like, inhuman literally or whatever, but, like, character traits like this are vile. Like, I have seen so many people do and say so many things on this platform. I have seen people who used to be Nazis have like a change of heart and genuinely become better people. I've seen people who cloak themselves in progressive politics hide like genuinely vile personalities and a willingness to hurt and abuse other people that they then like play off as, eccentricities or non-existent. You know, they draw attention to their like aesthetic like broader political good rather than like whatever they're doing or saying. There are so many like traits that people demonstrate. There are liars and there are people who are honest. There are people who know they're lying and people who don't know they're lying and are just kind of like caught up in the sauce. And like of all the types of people, this is always going to be the one that is the most vile to me, which is a person who lies knowingly, doesn't seem interested in changing the fact that they lie, and also seems to believe the lies they say. This is like a combination of features that is like I can't deal with it. I can't. It's too much for me. It's too bad. I can't deal with people like this. You know, it's vile. There are people who have done far more harm than James Somerton who have more capacity to change for the better than he seems to. There's not always a direct relationship between those things.
I feel like I abused the queer community. It was never my intention. Again, I'm sorry to Jesse. There were actually several other YouTubers who were very nice to me. But I feel like with everything that went down, Jesse is the one that I should apologize to the most. I'm sorry for the people who felt scammed, who thought that Telos was a grift. It was not. It is not. I am very sorry. And I hope, given time, and my actions proving it, that you can believe me.
Oh, just cutting it right there, huh? What do we got in the recommended feeds? I saw Astral Spliff complete a solo quota 10 Lethal Company run that I found incredibly entertaining. Tom Nicholas, Cinema Wins, which I think I saw one video of a while ago and no more, but I think I liked it. Scott Manley, with 2/3 views on the NASA lander. I might watch that. Drop shipping, good. Terraria, that's Terraria, right? No, that's Stardew Valley. Sorry, pixel art. You know how it is. It's not nostalgia. Old Minecraft was great. I disavow this video. We have Abigail over here, and we have Sean. I'm midway through watching the Palestine video. As repellent as I think Sean is as a human being, there's no getting around the fact that he makes good videos. So, I'm enjoying that. Disagreed with a few of the arguments in the beginning, but whatever. It's, we're operating on like 99% agreement. Yeah, fine. All right, well, that about cuts it.